Well, welcome everybody to the online program for the Sunshine Coast Health Center up here in Powell River, BC. And this month we've been talking about taking action in recovery, as opposed to just learning or gathering a toolbox in recovery, to actually put those tools to use. Okay? And just to reinforce this idea is there's a really remarkable book about Alcoholics Anonymous. It's called Not God, A History of Alcoholics Anonymous, written by Ernie Kurtz. And this is a fascinating book because this book isn't a description of, the principles of recovery or anything. It really is a history of the action people took to get recovery. It's not about how they thought about this and said, oh, geez, should we do this or that, thinking about, no, it's not about that. It's what did they do? What did they actually physically do to get recovery? Bill Wilson went into the hospitals. They created Alcoholics Anonymous, the meetings, all that. These were action, right? And this is actually what saved the members of the alcoholics who had joined the early group, because they did things, actually tangibly, physically did things. Okay. So this idea of action is fundamentally important, and we've talked so far on this online program about the struggles that people have when they can't take action, when they can't make a decision to do something, and they generally run into trouble in recovery. And we've talked about other people who do take action, but they use it as a distraction, as a way of avoiding facing things they have to do in their lives, right? And last week we talked about this idea of when you take action, you just don't do anything. This is an action that's got a purpose and a direction, right? And so some of the other tips that we can give you, this idea of taking action, if you're struggling with this idea, is we've mentioned before Anne Lamott's idea. The writer Anne Lamott had this concept of, if you don't know what to do the next right thing, right? I think Winston Churchill even said that, right? So you don't know what to do the next right thing. So whatever is the next right thing, do it. Right? But beyond that little tip, some of the things to learn, particularly even from Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm thinking of in the STEP program, or in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it has this phrase, half measures availed us nothing. This is a good lesson for taking action. You really can't go into anything half-hearted. So if you're going to get into recovery, there's no real point in doing it half-hearted, because you're just going to cause yourself a lot of suffering. Much better, as Irving Yalom says, is to make a commitment to action. Right? If you make a commitment, it's really remarkable. The guys do it here all the time, right? And if you remember what it was like when you were a client here, the one thing that you probably picked up is every single client who has said that has this profound sense of relief on their faces. It's like they've given up fighting. And when you do things full on, right, where you're just going to go for it, it's remarkable how much more you gain from it, and how much easier it is, rather than fighting with yourself all the way along, right? So this idea of making a commitment. But the idea is throw yourself into it and see what happens. But again, if you're scared, or if you're, I don't know, God, everything goes wrong in my life. If I do this, something's going to screw up. And so you're just sitting back waiting for the screw up, then you're going to be in trouble, right? Much better to say, well, hey, this could be the beginning of my new life. This could be kind of cool. I don't know what's going to happen. This might actually be exciting, right? But it's this idea of throwing yourself in there at all of you, not just, and not, we'll just take a little step and we'll see how we go. That's okay to begin with, but really at some point you got to actually put yourself right in there. Otherwise, probably you're going to be fighting with yourself quite a bit. And another little tip we can give you when you take action is and this is a tricky one, right? Because you have to get into your mind this idea that if you do something and maybe it doesn't work out for you, it's not actually a failure, right? It's a way of learning. This is so basic to human nature. This is how we grow as human beings, by screwing up. We screw up and we say, oh, gee, shouldn't have done that. Won't do that next time, right? But this is just how human beings operate in real life. And I always thought one of the great metaphors for human life is the baseball, these Major League Baseball players. So you get the great batter, right? He's batting .333. But what that means in real life is he's struck out twice as much as he's actually hit the ball. So he's had way more failures than he has had successes. And that's actually pretty real, right? We tend to, I don't know, we see some big rock star and we say, oh wow, he's got it made. Yeah, but you forget about all those years they had to put in that he wasn't doing all that good, right? And all the scientists who were great discoveries, well, it wasn't they woke up, jumped out of bed the first time and created some brilliant thing. No, they failed and failed and failed and failed and failed before they got the success. But the genius of it, they learned from the failures, right? And so it's this idea that if something doesn't work out for you, it's not a failure. It's like learn from it, right? It's actually it's how human beings operate. It's how human beings succeed and grow as people, is through failure. Right? So those are just a handful of little tips on this idea of taking action. So we'll be back next month, or actually next week, with another of our online topics.